Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 140. You can listen to this show wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast across the SB Nation network. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, where if you do, you will see the dejected look of one Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation and the still sort of sick look from myself, RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. Although BLG, as I understand it, you're a little bit under the weather yourself. Hope you're feeling better.
Thanks, RJ. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to hear it in my voice. I forge on the mental fortitude it takes to podcast. What an incredible feat. Not COVID, so that's good. I did a COVID test. I guess that's a good thing. But yeah, my head hurts. My voice doesn't sound great. Here I am. The Eagles lost to the 49ers. The true champion of the NFC East this year is not the Cowboys. Is not the Eagles. Is not the Commanders. It's not the Giants. It is the 49ers.
Look, I have been deathly afraid of the 49ers for a very long time. And I think you maybe understand why a little bit now. We obviously have a lot to get to. I do want to offer, because I think we were kind of talking about before we started, that a lot of people are sick. And I've obviously been sick for like a month at this point. I actually
you have a kid, just kind of your life now.
You mentioned that you started feeling sick right before the Niners game. I actually started feeling sick the day before the Cowboys were in Philadelphia. That's like when this kind of started for me. But so like I've gone through all sorts of treatments and like recommendations from people. What's you're feeling down, you're down in the dumps from a sickness standpoint, not because the Eagles got embarrassed. So like what's your go-to move, soup, meal, drink, bowl ice cream? What is it?
Yeah, you touched on that there. I mean, I actually did not feel as bad as I usually would after a loss, funny enough, in terms of like related to the game. Obviously physically sick, yes, that's making me feel way worse. Definitely a chicken noodle soup. We've talked about that.
That's right.
Basic, but it works. Like a tea as well. A nice hot tea can be, I think, relaxing, and especially if obviously you're having like some kind of throat thing, which I'm not, thankfully, at least knock on wood at this point. But I don't know. No one cares.
Wow. I saw on Reddit, it was the first time since the launch of the New Heights podcast between the Kelsey brothers that they both lost in the same week. Did you know this?
Jeez. That does make sense to me. I believe.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. Like it was one of those like obvious, but still like, oh, cool. Like I hadn't totally realized that. So there's a lot to unpack. We do have to go in divisional order, which is on the
starting
line.
With the 49ers.
Well, that is on the line this week. And by the way, before we get into everything, we should mention at the very top that this is the first of 2 NFC East mixtapes this week. If you're watching, you can see our banner at the bottom here, but we will have a live show for you on Thursday evening in parallel with Thursday Night Football. Coincidentally, Brandon, the last time we did this, it was in parallel with the Pittsburgh Steelers Thursday Night Football game, just like it will be this week.
Why are the Steelers on Thursday Night Football twice?
Well, it's because we're talking about partly the Eagles. And at one point in time, the Steelers and the Eagles were the same team. They called themselves the Steagles. Nobody knows this. It has to be shoved down our throats at every opportunity.
My head hurts so much, and that makes it so much worse.
So live show this Thursday evening. We'll do all, I would say not all, but most of our previewing for Sunday's Cowboys Eagles game in that episode. This, these are always interesting weeks around here. So this will be more of a look back at what happened, obviously, on Sunday afternoon. And so we do go in divisional order as mentioned. That means we start with the Philadelphia Eagles, who Brandon got humiliated on Sunday afternoon, 42-19, the final score. I saw one Eagles content creator tweet out the score of this game and the score of the Niners-Cowboys game.
That's right.
As some sort of flex that the Eagles scored 9 more points. I mean,
obviously, it's not
because their head coach kept them in garbage time even after the quarterback was in concussion protocol.
That's
and DeAndre Swift got sent into another dimension. This was a lot of people.
It's not why I tweeted those scores.
A lot of people thought this was possible, maybe that even might be a strong word, but there was a lot of discussion about how the Niners were 3-point favorites in Philadelphia. You yourself said, I love that, bring it on, et cetera, et cetera. And
That's right.
I'm a big believer in it is badass when in sports somebody can call their shot and prove it, like Deebo Samuel did. I know it's annoying when you're on your end of it right now, but this was the Niners like cashing every check that they wrote in essence.
They earned the right, no doubt, to cast it. They backed up their trash talk. just like the Eagles winning against the Chiefs, though, a couple of weeks ago, it's not like, okay, the Eagles won the Super Bowl retroactively now. The 49ers did, in fact, not actually retroactively win the NFC Championship game just because they won this game, just for the record. In any case, though, nothing bad to say about the 49ers. They dominated.
But this was, you said Dom, and there was an interruption in this game by somebody named Dom, and there's an interruption on the mixtape by somebody named Rob Stats Guerrera.
You just stole my bit.
Stats, welcome to the mixtape.
And also,
Jump off the top rope,
this was going to happen, so I saw this coming.
To be fair, when you asked me, RJ had not asked me to appear on the show.
I figured that he still might afterwards. I did not rule it out that you were not going to come on, just because, I mean, obviously he's going to do it because I did the same thing to you. And just like RJ said,
drop kick him. Go off, Kane.
What do you mean drop kick me?
When you say you have nothing bad to say about the 49ers, what bad could there possibly be to say? That would be my question to you. I mean,
exactly. That's my point.
Right.
I'm not arguing with you. What's the point of contention?
Yeah, that's as long as we're clear. And I agree. This doesn't mean anything about last year. There's nothing we could change about last year. But it does mean that in the 2 games the 49ers have faced against the biggest, baddest competition in the NFC, they have dusted the competition. 84 points in those games. And this game was comically bad. I mean, the Niners put up 462 yards of offense in 3 quarters. They were unstoppable on Sunday. And I have said it, when they play their best, nobody is beating them. Nobody.
They are the 8th best team through 12 games by DVOA. I saw that today from FTN Fantasy, formerly Football Outsiders. So, yeah, I mean, it was weird too because the Eagles got off to like a good-ish start. They outgained the 49ers 124 to -6.
Yeah, whatever it was.
The first 2 drives. So it was like, oh, maybe the Eagles are gonna there were encouraging early signs, other than obviously the Eagles settling for 2 field goals. That certainly did not feel good. I did not feel good about that when they were only up 6-0. And then from there, it wasn't a game. It looked like it might have been a game when that sideline incident, whatever you want to call it, happened.
Don't call it an accident.
Not accident. It looked like, that might be like a rallying point, but then the 49ers just responded with the 3rd or 4th of their 6 straight consecutive touchdown drives. So, yeah. And that's what a great team does. It looks like it was I'll let you go, Stats. But it's like a great team, has the game looks like it's in the balance, and they just shut the door.
I thought the biggest play of the game actually came on. So the Eagles score following the whole incident with Big Dom. And it's a 1-score game. It's 21-13 at that point. First play of that Niners possession, Brock Purdy gets sacked. And the crowd is going nuts, right? This is like, here we go. It's 3rd and 7. Crowd's going crazy. Niners go 3 and out there. They kick back to the Eagles. It's like, oh my God, here comes Philly. Here comes the big comeback. And instead, Brock Purdy drops back, scans, goes left to right, throws from the outside hash mark all the way across the field to Brandon Ayuk on a comeback for
Who did he beat?
He beat Darius Slay, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was massive. 2 plays later, Debo has the 48-yard touchdown, and it's a 2-score game again. But that 3rd down, I thought, was underrated in terms of how important it was for the Niners.
Well, that one, and also the one on the first convert, they had only had negative plays until the one on, it was actually a 2nd down pass from Purdy to Ayuk that set up a 3rd and short, and then they converted that, and that was the 49ers' first touchdown drive. Also surrendered by big play Slay. So, yeah.
To be fair, they were big plays.
I would offer on the flip side of things, like if we're talking about maybe not big plays, but like seismic plays, the Jalen Hurts slip on 3rd down. When he was, it just felt like, oh my gosh, something's going to break open. Something's going to it's about to work out. And to just kind of slip and fall and then have to settle really kind of felt like, man, they are missing the chance to take advantage of San Francisco not finding themselves. Stats, you seem like you have something you want to say.
What was that? He's sitting there directing traffic, and he just falls down. I mean, to get sacked by Javon Kinlaw, you basically have to just fall down.
I mean, I'm not excusing it. It was a terrible play. It did rain, so I'm guessing that it was a wet field, but you can't fall there. I mean, that's a terrible play. It can't happen.
Why?
That the field is now a concern again.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that's why he fell, but I'm not saying it's excusable. You're looking for a reason. I think that's how it happened.
I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong here, BLG, but I only counted one quarterback draw from Jalen Hurts in the game, and it was the first play after the whole sideline interaction. They tried to run a quarterback draw with Hurts in the red zone, and it got stopped for either negative play or no gain. I was really expecting them to do that more, and I was worried about it. And it just seemed like, for whatever reason, there were not a ton of designed runs for Jalen Hurts in the game plan.
Yeah, I mean, his health has been a thing all year in terms of he's just totally not the same player he was last year in terms of running ability and health and everything. So I guess that's part of it. I did not expect him to have a big game on the ground, as RJ can attest to. I took the under for our DraftKings same game parlay that failed to hit because Steven started to let us down once again. Although I guess he has been doing better than you, Stats, because we actually hit some this year. We've hit
how many? I don't know if you know that, Stats. We hit 2 in a row prior to the Black Friday game, and
after going 0 for 20 or whatever it was last year.
And Steven had was the over on Breece Hall receiving yards in that game, and it was like 25.5, and he had like 24 yards. It was like painfully close. And then last week, as mentioned, Brandon took the under on Hurts. I think it was like 44.5 rushing yards, I want to say. And I took the Niners race to 10. So we both hit. Steven took AJ Brown anytime scorer. But Charvarius Ward said, "Not today, not in my house." Boom.
It was stunning to me what the 49ers did in that game. I mean, 6 straight touchdowns. They hadn't done that as a team since 1992. So we're talking 31 years pretty much since that happened. It was a destruction. And honestly, like, I've had a lot of Eagles fans up in my mentions talking about, well, we'll see you in the NFC Championship game. And all I want to know is, like, are you sure you're going to be there? We'll be there. Are you sure you're going to be there? That's what I want to know.
Well, Stats, actually, let me ask you a question. I don't know if that was a question to Brandon or just like a spit in the face. I'd be fine with it either way. By the way, how'd that 92 season end? Anyway, you have thrown a lot of flowers, and understandably so, in the direction of the Eagles. You've said before, like, they're a machine, they're unflappable. That's the exact word you've used. Has your opinion changed on the Eagles as a result of this game, at least as it relates to a matchup against San Francisco specifically, but maybe in the overall? I don't know if you're just being silly. I mean, obviously they're a talented team, but, do you believe they're unquestionably the second best team in the NFC if they're behind San Francisco?
Unquestionably, no. I mean, I'll feel differently after this Cowboys game this week coming up. I would say this about the Eagles and my opinion on them. Remember that movie Happy Gilmore, when he's a terrible putter?
That movie that no one's heard of? That was
Wait, why do you say like that movie?
Yeah, like you were referencing something obscure.
It's pretty old by now, I'm just saying. But anyway, he's a terrible putter if you don't know. And then he makes a hole-in-one on a par 4, and he's walking down the course, and he's like, man, that's so much easier than putting. I feel like that's how the 49ers solved the Eagles' unflappability. Just be up by multiple scores in the fourth quarter, and then they can't possibly come back. The tighter that game was, the more nervous I was. And so the Niners kind of took that card away from them because they weren't close enough in the game to be able to pull it out at the end.
I do wonder, like, I don't think the Eagles win that game just because, like, if let's say they score at least one touchdown, one of those first 2 drives. But I do wonder if it changes, like, the vibe or the flow of things at all. Maybe not. I wonder about that alternate world. I do want to ask you a question, Stats, because I don't think this is like the only reason they lost the game, but I also do not think it's irrelevant that the Eagles had this rest disadvantage, which was significant coming from, well, you play on a short week against the Bills. I'm not saying this is like you have to lose because of this, but it is inarguably a disadvantage. Now you have to overcome these disadvantages, but they went from Monday to Sunday against the Bills and then played overtime against them. The defense played like 90-something snaps. Between the Chiefs and the Bills game, the defense played literally the equivalent of like 3 games. So not great. And then have to face the 49ers, who are coming off the mini bye. Not great. And then the Cowboys this week, mini bye. Not great. But I know you had mentioned, Stats, on Twitter that the 49ers have actually had a significant rest, the biggest rest disadvantage in the NFL this year, according to Warren Sharp's charting. Now, I will say, do you know, I've been meaning to ask you offline, how that was spread out? I'm genuinely asking, because for the Eagles, it's obviously all stacked together here against like the most important games of the year. So that's not ideal. Is that the same for the 49ers, or is that different?
So they play 5 games this season with a rest disadvantage. That was the most in the NFL. I know the Eagles were talking a lot about, they played 3 games in, 14 days, something like
13.
that. 13. The Niners played 3 games in 15 days. So, I'm just saying I think it was a factor, yes. And I think you saw that in Kyle Shanahan's game plan. basically it was make them chase us.
Yeah.
We saw
they couldn't tackle. Their tackling was like worse than it's ever been.
They were
defense defense couldn't get a stop after the first two drives. They looked gassed. Again, I'm not saying it's like the reason they lost, but it was not an insignificant factor.
Just to be clear, like for literal sake, because I get mad about this when people complain, Cowboys fans complain about the like going from Sunday to Thanksgiving to Thursday after. Every NFL team plays 3 games in 14 days, like conventionally, when you go Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. So like, the idea that like one day is like this seismic differences, whatever. But to your point, Brandon, the Thanksgiving Day teams, because that's where the Niners were coming off of. The Lions won in Week 13. The Packers beat the Chiefs, obviously, on Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys and Seahawks had a bit of a push, obviously, because they were both playing in that game.
Right.
The Commanders lost because they stink, and the 49ers obviously won. So.
Yeah, and I think it has to be a factor. I was talking about it all week. These people are human beings. And to be on the field for an hour and 12 minutes the last 2 weeks before facing the 49ers, I expected the Niners to be able to break some tackles in this game because it matters. It absolutely matters. When the Niners lost 3 straight, the first thing Kyle Shanahan said going into the bye week was,
what is that?
What?
What was that thumb?
I've seen that before. Wait, when did I do that before? I did that somewhere.
What,
and that happened
what happened? Did you not see that?
A thumbs up, and there's a thumbs up bubble that came out of his mouth.
Yeah. When people give you a like, it does that.
But we're not live anywhere.
No, Stats. You did a thumbs up and it made a bubble. I've done that before somewhere.
Yeah.
I forget, where was that?
Stats. Oh, look again on your face, Stats.
All right, I didn't know that was
Sorry
a thing.
to interrupt you, but that was just very funny that this popped up.
I got worried because I thought we were. I mean, it would have, I guess, not been the end of the world, but like I got because we're supposed to be recording this, so I was like, "Are we live somewhere?" That was weird. How that happened.
I thought that was only a thing for live recordings. I had no idea. That's weird because I'll throw up a thumb, for emphasis or whatever. But yeah, Kyle Shanahan said when the Niners lost 3 straight going into the bye, we're tired. We're just exhausted. And that's why we didn't look as good. And I think the same thing happened to the Eagles.
It definitely didn't help, obviously, Brandon, that the Bills took the Eagles to overtime and that was such a, lengthy game in terms of, how much game was played. Obviously, I think that was more of a bad luck draw than the schedule.
Well, part of it's the Eagles' fault, to be clear, for not taking care of business and getting your starters out. I'm not saying it's all just bad luck, but the scheduling is a little bad luck in terms of, again, rest disadvantage 3 straight weeks in a row in very big games.
Okay, I would like to ask each of you to answer this question. It's a 2-part answer. It's really just 2 answers that you have to give. Stats, you're our guest, so you can go first. What do you think about the Niners and or Eagles that you didn't think before Sunday's game? So you have to give us 2 answers. It can be 1 Niners, 1 Eagles, both Niners, both Eagles, whatever you want.
I didn't think the Niners offense was going to be able to move the ball that well against the Eagles. And I think that if they played again and the Eagles had more of a rest, I still think the Niners would have maybe not as much success, not 6 straight touchdowns, but I was so much more fearful of the Eagles defense before this game than I will be if they play again.
BLG.
I don't understand the question. What's the question?
What are 2 things you think that you didn't think on Sunday morning? And again, they could be positive, negative takeaways for either team that were involved in this.
Well, game. I mean, obviously, it's inarguable. 49ers top team in the conference now. There's no dispute. I think that was
NFL, dude. There's not an AFC team that can hang with them.
Well, I mean, I'm not really care about the AFC, but yes, to that point, yes.
Wow, tough scene.
I think it was more arguable, before that, because you could, if you want to expand it to the NFL, you could say the Ravens, you could say the Eagles, whatever. That's now inarguable. I don't think this game means I'm out on the Eagles all of a sudden because I look back at my preseason, win-loss record prediction for the Eagles. I had them at 9-3. They're 10-2. So I'm not going to be like, oh, the season is over now. They still could very well get the 1 seed. They are the favorites to get the 1 seed at this point.
They could lose this week and still have significant control towards the
now. That feels terrible. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I mean, I'm still not I shouldn't need to say this after a 10-2 start, but I'm not ready to give up on the season.
If the Eagles lose this week and the Niners win, the Niners are the 1 seed.
That's fair, but that's why I said could. They could lose on Sunday. The Eagles could and still control their fate.
Yeah, the Eagles. Well, the Eagles would. Yes, need the 49ers to drop 1 more game at that point, and they play the Ravens. So who knows? But we'll see.
That's going to be. Well, that's going to be.
I have a question for you, Stats. While you're here, do you think the 49ers win out?
No, In fact, I would not be shocked if they lost one of the next 2 games. They have Seahawks and Cardinals coming up, and then after the Cardinals is that Ravens game on Christmas. So I could see them maybe they'll get up for the Seahawks game, although I think it'll be tough because we know emotionally they were clearly invested in this Philly game. But I could see them dropping either the Seattle game or the Arizona game just because they're going to come in kind of half-assed, feeling themselves, and I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. I don't think they're going to win out. I mean, look, last year they went into the playoffs on a 10-game winning streak. If they won out this year, it'd be a 9-game winning streak. I think the odds that happens 2 games in a row are pretty crazy. Although I will say, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel in games that they have finished, the Niners are 16-0.
I asked Kyle Posey about this. I think 2 of those 16 games, or maybe if it's 17 if it includes the playoffs, or 18, I guess. Or maybe not 18 because of the title game last year, but I think the 2 of those games are against the Cowboys in the divisional round last year, and then obviously the matchup earlier in the regular season. And those games haven't been close, at least for my team. You know what I mean? They're a monster when they're all involved and they finish the game. To your point, I want to ask you both the question while you're both here, because the Seahawks now play a funny role in the 1 seed, right? Because the Cowboys just beat them. They visit the 49ers on Sunday Stats, and they host the Eagles next week, BLG. Are either of you more fearful of the Seahawks throwing a wrench into your team's plans than you were before last Thursday night? Because I think last Thursday afternoon, we were like, oh, the Seahawks, whatever. They were impressive. At least they were impressive to me.
I disagree.
Okay, so you're not more afraid of Seattle than you were a week ago.
Well, I'm afraid of the matchup in terms of the Eagles are coming off so they'll be coming off the Cowboys game at that point, and then so flying to Dallas, having to fly back to Philly, having to go all the way back out to Seattle.
The Seahawks game.
That does help, but still, it's not great to have to go across back and forth the country like that. So the situation is, I'm not going to say it's like an easy path, but Geno stinks, dude. The Seahawks could have had that game. He stinks. He choked that game away. He was terrible at the end of that game. He threw the makeable throws that he just kept missing. He stunk at the end. The Seahawks had that game, and they just blew it. And I do not. And now, obviously, they were more competitive than I thought they were going to be. But I'm not fearful of them all of a sudden. And I think Mookie's take that, they can beat the Eagles now because they blew the game like that is pathetic.
I don't know if I told you stats, but yeah, Mookie messaged me right after Thursday night and said, this gave me confidence that we talk about the Seahawks.
Why?
And the Eagles.
Because Geno can blow it again against the Eagles? Okay, great.
Okay, stats, answer the question, please. Are you more afraid of the Seahawks now?
It's a division game, so that always gives you pause, but the 49ers have played the Seahawks 4 times. The last 4 meetings, they've outscored them 120-54. So, am I worried? Not really. I'm agreeing on Geno Smith. I don't think Geno is any good. I think Geno has not been good, dude. The second half of last year, I think his performance has really dropped off. DK Metcalf just gets outs. I hate what's going on with DK Metcalf. I don't know what's up there, but no. Am I fearful? No. You gotta, it's like that scene in Watchmen with Rorschach when he's in prison. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. You got to play the 49ers. If anybody's fearful, it's going to be the Seahawks.
Yeah, I've never seen Watchmen, so that reference is lost on me.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Dude, come on.
Yeah, you would like it. You're like a superhero guy too. Why wouldn't you not watch that one?
I feel like I'm like Mr. Pop Culture, but I have some pretty, embarrassing holes in my game. So I'm okay admitting that. This final stretch between these 3 teams going to come down to a lot of birds. Obviously, the Eagles themselves. Both teams, your 2 teams at least, played the Cardinals before the season is over. Not that anybody really believes in them, but still. And the Cowboys lost to them, which is a factor. The Seahawks, who we just mentioned, and whoever doesn't win the NFC East is very likely going to visit a different bird in the Atlanta Falcons. So, yeah.
And the Niners have the Ravens.
That was my other point. That's right. Are we missing a bird team?
No.
There's too many bird teams.
Yeah, there's too many bird teams, which makes the idea of one team referring to themselves as the Birds incredibly narcissistic. So,
can I ask a question to you, BLT?
That's the guy who's dubs his team America's team.
I dubbed them that, correct.
What is your opinion on the whole Big Dom incident with Dre Greenlaw? Because I want to know if you're a rational Eagles fan or if I want to know if you're a crazy person.
I think the thing is, it doesn't matter. 49ers fans want him to be expelled from the. You literally won't even notice if he is or isn't. So who cares? First of all, second of all, the way I saw it, And obviously, you're going to think I'm biased, but honestly, I don't care. Like, I don't care about I don't root for Big Dom. I mean, he seems cool. From my personal interactions with him, have been few, but like, nice guy. I think my honest take of the video is he was trying to de-escalate a situation, and people are acting like he touched a player. Oh my gosh, he tried to initiate physicality. He was trying to diffuse a fight. That is the reality of the situation. That is not putting hands on a player with intent to like start something up.
Why is he touching any player on the field? Why is
he's trying to just break up a fight?
Not his job.
Okay,
That's
sorry for breaking up a fight. Well, let's encourage the fight. Let's actually fan the flames and make the fight happen.
That's not what Stats is saying. Stats' point is simple in that's not his job. So why is he assuming it to be his job?
Well, we don't need Big Dom to break up a fight. Get your hands off one of our all-pro linebacker. Get the hell away from the field.
Your all-pro linebacker who has a history of getting ejected and like committing personal fouls. I'm sure he didn't start trouble or instigate anything.
No,
Stats in the preview podcast on his network literally said like Dre Greenlaw is the most likely player to get ejected from this game. It happened.
It was a flagrant penalty on Devontae Smith. Nobody is like diminishing that with this point, but like the three of us know each other.
But whatever,
very
fine.
well.
You're right. Okay, I don't care. You're right. Whatever. Like there's nothing. What is to be gained in this argument? I don't care.
Martyr. Like everyone's like, oh, he's so beloved. It's like, who cares? He screwed up. Doesn't make him a bad guy.
But he screwed up. But whatever. We disagree.
Well, first of all, the NFL has to suspend him because you can't have teams hiring these sponsors to go.
That makes no difference. Like, cool.
No, because you can't have teams hiring these guys to try and instigate stuff.
He did not instigate anything.
Yes, he did. He put his hands on Greenlaw first. He put his hands on Greenlaw first. Does Dre Greenlaw even interact with Big Dom at all if he doesn't touch
I'm done. I'm done with this. It just doesn't matter. Who cares?
It was funny that one of those floating
keep talking about it
like in the middle of this passioned argument. Passioned? I don't know. Stats,
because it doesn't matter. Who cares?
It does matter.
Okay, he's suspended. Do you feel happy now?
I feel satisfied knowing that won't happen again because his presence.
Will you even know? Will you even know if he's there or not on the sideline?
You asked the question. Do you want to?
Will you know if he's there or not?
I will know. No. I will know that there's no threat of a player being ejected from Big Dom escalating a situation.
Big Dom. Oh no, he's so.
And why did if it was no big deal? Why did he leave to a chorus of cheers? Why was he hailed as a hero?
Especially on the broadcast. I don't know if you've heard it since then, but the broadcast went nuts about this situation.
We lost an all-pro
I didn't hear the broadcast, so I can't speak to that.
It was actually, this was one of the only things that ever made me believe that the NFL is scripted because stats hear me out. But like, I would say like an hour before in real time, Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen talked about how the night before they had gone out to dinner in Philadelphia and that they had gone out on the place they went to was suggested. They were like by the Eagles head of security, Big Dom, cool guy. Like, again, like how often have you ever heard the broadcast reference somebody like that and then have them play this major role in the game?
Well,
it was like a WWE sort of storyline.
There's that, and there's also the fact that they just released Big Dom shirts as the Eagles organization to raise money for Eagles Autism Foundation. So it's all for charity.
But like,
so
had the Eagles,
Big Dom, 3D chess, raising money for charity. Great guy, fantastic. And if you disagree, then you hate charity.
That's not true.
He's doing it all for the kids.
If the shoe had been on the other foot, this is what I was going to ask Stats. And if I don't know, if Jalen Hurts had been ejected or whoever, you would be throwing a fit over whoever the like security guard was in question. You would say like how ridiculously it was not a 1-for-1 ejection that Dre Greenlaw, who's a significant impact on the field, was taken out of the game, and Big Dom, who to your point is irrelevant in terms of his presence.
Well, it's sort of a loophole in the rules because the VP of officiating was saying like when they review the whole incident, they can't tell the refs to throw a penalty on the Eagles sideline because they can only tell them to throw a penalty on a coach or a player.
That's weird.
So they were powerless to do. I mean, they ejected him, yes, but they couldn't penalize the Eagles for that in that spot. Now, the refs on the field could have penalized the Eagles sideline, but they didn't. And so there was nothing that they could do after the fact except throw him out.
It is funny how the NFL acts like there's these like inconquerable forces when it comes like, oh, well, that's an unreviewable penalty or unreviewable thing. So our hands are tied. Like, we really can't do anything here, guys. Like, sorry, like the whole world. I mean, not even using this example, but like, how like some things aren't reviewable or challengeable. It's like, oh, sorry, It is what it is. By the way, as this happened, or this conversation in real time, Doug Peterson announced that Trevor Lawrence only has a right hand ankle sprain. So good news for the NFL.
That guy's made out of vibranium. Oh my God.
Everybody can listen to Stats, and if you're an Eagles fan, you can go get more upset about his takes over on the Gold Standard Network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube. Stats, plug away, plug.
Yes, thank you very much. Gold Standard YouTube channel, Gold Standard 49ers Podcast Network. We do shows every day. We go live on YouTube every single day. I love going across the aisle, so to speak, and talking to people from the Niners opponent. BLG, you obviously joined us last week. Niners play the Seahawks this week. I'm going to talk with Steve Rabel, their radio voice, whose voice has haunted me over the past decade of him calling Russell Wilson crazy-ass plays. But that'll be a fun conversation a little later today. So please like and subscribe, and you can follow me on all the socials at Stats on Fire.
Stats, before you leave, BLG, I did prompt him several times to have a song ready for today.
Yes.
So what do you want to add? This is like your third or fourth song that you've added to our playlist, Stats. You had a lot of time to prepare for this, so this better be good.
Okay, so I've, listening to the Christmas music because it's the holiday season. So I'm going to go with a Christmas carol, Text Me Merry Christmas by Straight No Chaser and Kristen Bell. It is a bop.
Entirely a cappella, even though Kristen Bell's on it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. All right. Respect. Can you text me that actually? Because I will forget before we get out of here. So
yes, I will text
Making
you.
Making them do more work.
Text me Merry Christmas. Sure.
That's 42-19. Say it again and then leave.
Yeah. 42-19, baby. Let's go Niners.
More competitive game than the 49ers Cowboys game.
This is embarrassing for you. All right, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about America's team. Welcome back. The red, white, and blue represents the Dallas Cowboys and their 41-35 win over the Seattle Seahawks. It was a bad week to be a Green Bird, basically, in the NFC East as it relates. Did not like the Seahawks throwbacks uniforms in this game. No, they're a great look, but it was too much royal blue because of the Cowboys.
I thought it looked cool though. I thought it looked cool because of that.
I wanted
kind of looked like a Cowboys practice, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was a lot happening visually. So if you want to wear them against like the Niners, I think that'd be a great look. For this specific game,
they're really good on their own. They're really good.
Totally agreed. Anyway, so truth be told, like cards. I was gonna say hands on the cards. Hands up, cards on the table. I was terrified, and at halftime, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It was like the 500 team thing is gonna be so annoying if they lose this game. But Dak Prescott showed up on a night where the defense really failed him. You have heard me kind of come for Dan Quinn in the past when everybody wants to act like he's perfect and infallible. I mean, the Seahawks offense, and this is why I completely understand you and Stats like not being scared of them. They had been terrible. They had been awful before this game. I think the stat that was going around, they hadn't scored an offensive touchdown in 7 straight quarters, and they show up and like, boom, the DK Metcalf 73-yard touchdown. Okay, fine. Like you're thinking like, okay, well, they got one. You know what I mean? Like he's a beast. Like that's going to happen. But they just kept going over and over and over at Deron Bland. It's a really tough scene on the day he was crowned NFC Defensive Player of the Month for November, and you were just kind of feeling like this is where it was all going to fall apart. But again, Dak Prescott, well in the MVP conversation, played like it, put the team on his back. Cowboys didn't punt a single time. They did have a failed 4th down conversion when CeeDee Lamb dropped it, but really impressive game from Dak, from CeeDee, and the defense did stand up tall at the very end when it mattered the most, but certainly a concerning thing as it relates to the path moving forward.
Yeah, I think the difference in this game was the quarterbacks ultimately. Like Dak made the plays, came through for his team, and Geno, I think, wilted. He absolutely crumbled down the stretch. Seahawks offense as a whole, very unfortunate they couldn't do the brotherly shove, and their 4th and 1 situation got stopped there. Cowboys defense, made those key plays on 4th down. But yeah, I mean, my takeaway at the end there, and obviously, he had a good game up to that point, or enough to be able to put up 35 points.
I know you're hating on Geno, and I understand the end was terrible. It was an elite game to that point. Like he did wilt.
That's fine, but you're defined by winning or losing, and you crumbled. He absolutely crumbled. He had makeable throws that he missed.
It was an amazing game until the very end.
But that's the difference. And so I think the Seahawks had this game. I think it was when they were up. Didn't they have a drive when they were up 8 or up 5 maybe at one point at the end? And it's like, if you're going to win the game, you have to at least get a field goal here. But this is where if you're a good team, you get a touchdown, you end the game. You put the game out of reach, and they just kept letting the Cowboys hang around, and the Cowboys took advantage of it.
A lot of people had issues with the way Mike McCarthy handled the end of this game. It's been a while now because the game was on Thursday, but Cowboys, third and short. And obviously, in a situation they wanted to go up and go up 2 scores and kind of, really put the game away. McCarthy went deep to the end zone, didn't work out. They had to settle, made it a 6-point game, gave Seattle the ball back, technically in a bit of a stressful situation. The Lions had a similar situation on Sunday against the Saints, and the conversion worked. And so, you look at that, you're like, oh, there you go, being aggressive. Like, I would much rather live on that end of the spectrum. Like I would much rather I'm not saying it's the greatest like play call of all time, but I am very happy that Mike McCarthy is an aggressive play caller. I want that, especially when you have an MVP caliber quarterback, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Like, I like that McCarthy is believing in that over anything else, especially on a night where the defense was horrible.
I don't know how you leave Micah Parsons unblocked on the final play. I don't care what scheme or what. It's literally the best player. You can't have him unblocked. Like, it's that simple. It's sometimes people like to overcomplicate football. Actually, just match up. No, it's Micah Parsons. Have someone put their hands on him. And if they don't, what are you doing? That's an embarrassing failure.
A lot of Cowboys takes over the last almost week now have been obviously gratitude that it worked out the way that it did, and that it was really nice. This was, I'd said before, the only time the Cowboys had a fight go all 10 rounds was the Chargers win that they had. But obviously a much lower scoring game. And in that game, I don't know if you remember, criticized Mike McCarthy for how he handled the end of the first half. He just took a knee near the end of the first, or kicked a field goal. He had like 18 seconds and didn't even try for the end zone. I was really upset. So this was a very different thing in that the Cowboys trailed. You mentioned they trailed by 5. They trailed by 8 early on. I didn't say midway through because of, coming out of the half and then the Seahawks touchdown. This was the first, again, not, I would say the Chargers fight went 10 rounds, but just because nobody really won it, the Seahawks were winning. Like, the Seahawks were landing some uppercuts and some blows and really roughed the Cowboys up. This was the first time Dallas has trailed at AT&T Stadium all season long, and they trailed multiple times. So the fact that Dallas was able to kind of withstand what was, I think, inarguably Seattle's best shot of the season, and hold on for the win, that was a win that they just, we've seen the Cowboys have in the past, but they just haven't been in a position to get this season in, specifically.
I think it was a really good win for them in terms of, okay, you're beating up on a bunch of bad teams. What does it really mean? Okay, I don't think the Seahawks are great, but they're definitely, they're above average team. So, and to be able to be in that spot and to rally, I think that matters for building character, for building belief. It's something you can build on moving forward. I wouldn't I know they gave up 35 points here, but that doesn't worry me. I think sometimes games just get away. There's just certain game scripts or certain games. So I don't like over unders or making too much of a game like this. I just think sometimes a game gets like this. Also, there's games that get really ugly. I don't think it means that the Cowboys defense is a big issue all of a sudden now. It's just how the game was going.
Not a big issue, but definitely not. There was a time where I thought oh man, they're going to set some historic marks this season. They're not, they're very, very, very good. But I don't know that I think they're top 2 in the NFL. Maybe that's their ceiling. Certainly they can challenge, they can have great games and great performances, but there's clearly a difference between them and whoever you believe to be the best defense in the NFL right now.
Probably the Ravens.
Yeah, Ravens. I know the Browns have had their moment.
Chiefs,
it's a little tougher.
we're up there.
Yeah, Chiefs are up there. But it's weird, and weirdly so. I don't know if you've seen this. Micah Parsons is now significantly the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year, and some of that I think is odds makers adjusting for the Browns and how they're kind of fading. And obviously, Myles Garrett's on that team. You kind of have to be on a team with success to win awards like this. And Deron Bland is a contender, but Micah Parsons is kind of the face. Micah also has the oh, he's never won it, and he kind of, deserves a thing that, TJ Watts wanted or Nick Bosa's wanted. You get my point. Sometimes, odds makers or award voters want to give the dude who doesn't have and whatever. So that's weird to me. But weird, but also logical because Micah was amazing in this game, even though the Cowboys defense struggled. Micah just continued to be a perennial force the way he always has been.
All right. Anything else about this Cowboys game?
They survived their, rest. I don't want to call it gauntlet, but it is a tough thing for them. I get upset when Cowboys fans get mad about the 3 games in 12 days thing. But it is difficult because, like Stat said, players are human. So when they go Sunday to Thanksgiving to Thursday, it is a very tight, thing. So the fact that they won all those games is really impressive, and they're 9-3 now, and that's what Mike McCarthy does. Since I don't know if you saw, I tweeted this on what's today, Tuesday. Since 2021, which is the Nick Sirianni era, the team with the most wins in the NFL is the Chiefs with 34. The Cowboys and Eagles are tied for second with 33. So they're going to be a playoff team again, and that hasn't been the case for 3 years in a row in a very long time.
The Giants are third still, right?
But they were on bye, so we can't really talk about a game. We're reviewing.
The most that seems to be going on with them is Tyrod Taylor going to be back from IR. I've seen some conversation at Big Blue View. Like, who should it be? Should it be Tyrod? Should it be Tommy DeVito? What do you think?
While we were talking with Stats, it was reported that Brian Dable said Tommy DeVito is going to start this week on Monday Night Football. So at the very least this week, it's the Tommy DeVito show.
I think. I mean, they should stick with him, right? Your season's lost. In theory, like Tommy DeVito might be a credible backup, and that's valuable to have for the future. If he can prove he's a good number 2, then great. What are you going to learn by playing Tyrod?
I mean, to that point, like, we're talking a day after the Bengals game. Like, would you have rather played Jake Browning or CJ Beathard? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you have Joe Burrow in this particular example, so like it's not a conversation for you, but like, that CJ Beathard's not it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus like Jake Browning, like, has lottery ticket potential, and it kind of worked out at least on Monday night. By the way, I thought about this. I didn't know this, but so the Niners had CJ Beathard on their roster, and the Jaguars obviously signed him. That yielded a 7th round compensatory pick that became Brock Purdy. So Could you argue that Doug Peterson set up the Eagles' downfall? I was so excited when I realized that during the game on Monday night. I was so excited to bring this up to you. So I've gotten what I wanted out of that. But let's move on. The Commanders had no shot, dude. Man,
I'm upset I didn't take them for my lock of the week. I overthought it.
Yeah, they had absolutely no shot. The Dolphins boat raced them 45-15. If there has ever been a time in recent history for a non-quarterback to win MVP, it's Tyreek Hill. But dude,
I mean, it's not shocking after look at what CeeDee Lamb did against the Commanders. Look at what AJ Brown did against. It's not shocking. It was very predictable. And the Commanders are tanking, organizationally. I truly believe they are at this point. Not the coaching staff, not the players necessarily, not their incentives, but I think that organizationally they are not trying to do all they can to win, and I think that's showing up here. And it's smart. It's smart for them in the long term. In the meantime, it's not the best feeling to get embarrassed, but whatever.
So Terry McLaurin had a really quiet day, and that was what a lot of people were talking about. And I was browsing the Commanders subreddit, and I saw a point that actually made me proud of us. Somebody said, I don't think he has ever recovered this season from the turf toe. Remember when Ron Rivera played him in the preseason and that happened, and we were like, this feels like something that could linger and that we could hear in the offseason, like he never got right, whatever. Like, Ron Rivera is so bad, dude. Like, I mean, he is one of the worst coaches in the NFL. Like, it's not just that the results are there. By the way, their loss secured nothing but losing seasons for Ron Rivera. This is his 4th season in Washington. They've all been below 500 seasons. Even the NFC East title winning season in 2020, which is amazing. It's hard to call it this because it was a unique thing and they were really in need of a good human being. And I certainly advocate for Ron Rivera in that sense. But like in a football sense, this has been a failure of an era, the Ron Rivera time in Washington.
I think it's been about what was expected originally in terms of he made it so that in some seasons they weren't like the worst team in the NFL, but it's not really. I think it raised their floor a little bit at times. Obviously, they did win the division even though sub 500. But and then they haven't been the Giants, which is not anything to say that's amazing, but it did make them more respectable than the Giants have been, although they can't beat the Giants, so yikes. But win-loss wise, they've been better than the Giants have for a while. But I always said I'm not really worried about the Commanders' ceiling with Ron Rivera. There does seem to be Eric Bieniemy fatigue too. It's hard to kind of separate him from that whole mess of a operation they have going on.
Well,
But
because the Sam Howell stuff has cooled. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at least at first it was like, oh, at least like
that's
Sam Howell's playing
yeah.
really well. Maybe this, maybe that. But like now that that's cooled off, it's like, oh, what
Even
is
Commanders
redeeming about
fans
it?
that were like, we found a guy. He's the guy. As of a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's 3 straight games. He has a pick 6 now. I mean, I hope he's the guy there because he's clearly not, anything that is ultimately threatening. I mean, obviously they don't have to move on from him. They can keep him around, but they have to do something more serious in terms of it feels like it's the prime opportunity. They're going to make a move. They're going to have to make a big splash because it's a new ownership. It's going to be a new head coach, new GM. Like they're going to want their guy, and they're not going to just want to like sign someone, whoever, and inherit Sam Howell. They're going to want to make their own imprint.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that comes by way of the draft at present time. And Washington's on bye this week, by the way, the final buys of the season, them in Arizona. Arizona holds the 3rd overall pick in the draft and Washington holds the 4th. So they really need that buy this week. But the Giants have the 7th. Like Washington's right there, like maybe Jaden Daniels territory. But I think it's pretty safe to say that New York is going to have to pay to go get a quarterback. I know we're talking about the Commanders, here, but like they're too low at this point in time. And especially if Tommy DeVito does some weird stuff down the stretch.
And like I talked about, it's potentially a situation week 18 where the Eagles don't need that game, depending on how things go.
Right.
And they allow the Giants
Dallas
to win.
with Washington, like you brought up last week.
So both of those teams could get hurt by that. They can still trade up, but okay, now you're giving up more capital for that.
The Commanders are on bye, and then they visit the Rams next week, but then they visit the Jets. I think I will take, a few weeks looking down the road, I would take the Commanders to beat the Jets. Like the Jets are
Is there
so
a team
desperate.
You wouldn't take to beat the Jets?
No, but I do think, to your point, I think the Commanders are logically and wisely, taking their foot off the gas, right? And letting the car come to a slow stop. I think the Jets are so desperate that they need any kind of goodwill. You know what I mean? And so like they will gladly take that win and Washington will gladly take that loss.
All right, let's preview week 14.
Well, kind of, because, we have a whole show that we're going to do on Thursday for that.
Yeah, we got to look ahead though.
Not
everyone can see tune into both episodes.
That's fair. So we have to go in chronological order. And I mentioned that the Giants play on Monday Night Football and the Commanders are on bye, which means the first game in question is Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys hosting the Philadelphia Eagles at AT&T Stadium, where they have won 14 games in a row. They're 3.5-point favorites. That grew. It started at just 3. This is a big game. It's certainly bigger for the Cowboys. There's no doubt about that because of the fact that the Eagles won the first matchup. And for what it's worth, I just want to clarify. I think you probably clarified to BGN radio listeners, but if the Cowboys win this game, when we all go to sleep on Sunday or Monday morning, whatever, Dallas will be in first place in the NFC East. However, they do not control their destiny. So they could win out, even at this point.
Right.
If Philly loses this game and wins out, the Eagles win the NFC East. So
even if the conference record, I believe, the conference record tiebreaker.
Right. So even if the Eagles lose this game, the Cowboys fans still need the Eagles to lose and slip up, which is why I asked you about the Seahawks earlier, obviously. Your thoughts certainly right now, please.
And then on the flip side, obviously, if the Eagles win this game, the NFC East is pretty much
it's effectively over because you really need
because the Eagles have the head-to-head at that point.
By the way, just really quickly, it's really obvious that because it's still very possible that the Niners get the 1 seed, right? So I don't know if it's fair to say it's very likely that the winner of this game is the 1 seed. Certainly, those odds increase for Philly if they win it, but I think it's extraordinarily likely that the loser of this game is the 5 seed in the NFC. Does that make sense? So,
probably.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Not the loser of the game. It's more probable that one of these two teams is the 5 seed than it is. Like that's a significant probability in my mind that the 5 seed is going to be the Cowboys or the Eagles. But there's a little bit more, up in the air in terms of whether one of them will be the 1 seed. Because the 6, 7 seeds and below all just keep losing. I know the Rams won and the Packers won, but
Eagles also beat the Rams and they beat the Vikings. So we'll see about the Seahawks, but potential for a tiebreaker.
Cowboys beat the Rams, obviously. So that's what I'm saying. Like they have, these two teams have a clear, lead on the field for the wild card spot. So this is about potentially positioning yourself, obviously for the division title, and then potentially for the number 1 seed.
Eagles have not won in Dallas since 2017. What was that? The Jerry Jones Hall of Fame enshrinement halftime?
And at the time, it was the worst loss ever in AT&T Stadium history. That's been outdone since, but at the time,
Right. Well, what's the worst one since?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's been outdone. So.
Okay, so there's that. There's also the fact that they have not swept the Cowboys since. Do you know when?
20.
11 is what you're looking
Yeah,
for.
I was at 13 in my mind going back. Wow.
So it's been a while, and I don't think Again, I'm not saying the Eagles definitely are hopeless for the rest of the season, but I think they had earned the benefit of the doubt up until the 49ers game. And I think they've lost that, with the way they've lost. And then not only have they lost that, but the Cowboys also have earned it with how they played recently, and also just in the greater context of the history of this series. And it just seems like it's hard to believe that even if the Eagles are rolling, it's hard to believe that they're just going to so easily sweep the Cowboys. So I am, not making my final pick on Tuesday as we're recording this, but I am certainly leaning towards the Dallas side of things. I think it could be a close game, so I don't know totally how I feel about the line yet. I'm leaning, pick towards straight up Cowboys. The line, I'm still a little bit less certain. We'll see. I do think this game is incredibly telling about who the Eagles are. You lost to the 49ers. That sucks, but flush it. You beat the Cowboys, and I'm not saying all is right in the world because you still have to worry about how you're gonna beat San Francisco if that happens down the road. But you can worry about that when that happens, and you can kind of just feel good about potentially getting the 1 seed and setting yourself up for the most favorable situation to face the 49ers again, as opposed to going there. So very interested to see how this team is going to respond.
Yeah. This is, I mean, I think you're a little bit more concerned, obviously in like a show us who you really are Eagles way. But this is equally a show us who you really are Cowboys sort of way, right? Like you just said, like the momentum's kind of on your side, the vibes are on your side, right? Like most people, to your point, would say like you haven't lost here in general in a very long time. You haven't been swept by the Eagles in a very long time. You haven't lost to them in this building in a very long time. Like this is the show us you're the team that can take care of business game for the Cowboys, right? Like last week, everyone's willing to say, hey, look, the Seahawks maybe a little bit more talented. Maybe we wrote them off a little early and Gino didn't write back and all this stuff, but you survived. You proved that you had that in your bag. Prove you have a different level in your bag. It may not be easy, it may not be clean, but go win. And even if you don't wind up winning the 1 seed, cast your division rival into chaos for the final, 4 weeks or 5 weeks of the regular season. Like make them so uncomfortable. And you have to worry about San Francisco yourself, obviously. However this ultimately shakes out. But go take care of business, protect your home field advantage that you have legitimately developed at this point in time, and prove that this line was fair and right, the way the Niners did. Like it is not a secret that Mike McCarthy has tried to become the Niners. Like what a bold thing. But like the Niners very emphatically backed up. You said it, like they earned the right to cash their checks. Go earn your right to cash your checks. And I think we both agree the Cowboys played very well against Philly, but they didn't get it done at the very end. That's what it kind of comes down to. Although I think you're a little too harsh on Gino about that. But yeah, go take care of business, get the win, move on, and then start your little gauntlet on the road against Buffalo and Miami and see if you pick up help along the way. You have the rest advantage. You're at home. You've been at home. Do you know the last time the Cowboys played on the road off the top of your head?
The Eagles game.
No, it was the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
The Panthers game.
Yeah, when they went to Carolina. You've been at home a very long time. Like you have all the things kind of rolling your way. And you might have the MVP in the NFL at quarterback. Like, so there's a lot of ripple effect in this game, right? Eagles win, Jalen Hurts' MVP candidacy kind of, returns to what it was. If the Eagles lose, I think that's a sinking ship, just the MVP specifically. Whereas Dak Prescott probably gets a really nice bump. Obviously, that depends a lot on what San Francisco does down the stretch. Micah Parsons, you want this, Micah Parsons entered. Do you remember the Colts game last year that Dallas played on Sunday Night Football when they just destroyed them?
I guess. I don't know.
Micah entered that game with the potential to take the lead in sacks, and he didn't have one. And I wouldn't say Micah faded down the stretch. I would never say that about Micah, but he wasn't as loud. So Micah, you have an opportunity here. Go be loud. Go shut the door. Go twist the knife. And don't make yourself the first Dallas Cowboys team in 12 years to get swept by these dudes. I think we all said at the beginning of the season, oh, they probably split the series, Dallas and Philly. Go live up to that. Like, not that that's like a thing to brag about, but like, go live up to what everyone believes you are at this point. And you have fought so hard to earn belief from people. Don't let it slip out of your hands, especially against a team that you have had some success against.
I'm not saying their season is over because they lose this game, either team, but I think, is it fair to say it's the unserious bowl? Because whoever loses this game, I think it's kind of an unserious result. In terms of the Eagles side, you just lose to the 49ers and the Cowboys. You might get the 1 seed, but no one's taking you seriously. And if you're the Cowboys and you have this, winning streak and everything, and if Dak is the MVP, you go out and win this game. And if you lose to the Eagles, who just got blown out, and again, you're not hopeless. I'm not saying the season's over, but it's kind of like, man, like, are we serious?
I think that's somewhat fair. I do think that this game, if the Cowboys lose, it will be really they'll be really down. Everybody will be really down.
It'll be deflating,
about them
for sure. Either team.
It will be deflating, but it will allow a much longer ramp to cope, right? Like, because if the Cowboys lose this game, it effectively locks them in, but like, they're the 5 seed. Like, that's not changing no matter what. You can kind of stop scoreboard watching if you're a Cowboys fan. Like, of course, anything is possible, but it is really, really, really difficult to win the NFC East and secure the 1 seed, obviously, if you lose this game. It's just a matter of things, really locking into place, but you'll be the 5 seed in all likelihood. Versus the Eagles, if they lose this game, they still control their own destiny, but I do think there would be like legitimate panic. I don't know that, like, I think there'd be disappointment on the Cowboys side, but I think there'd be panic. To your point, it's like, okay, well, these might be the 3 best teams in the NFC, and the Eagles just lost back-to-back games against them, one at home, and then one against their division rival. And it would be the first time Philly lost 2 regular season games in a row in 3 years or something like that? 2 years
since 2021.
Yeah, I mean, so it would be unprecedented in some senses, obviously. And so one fan base is going to be like walking on air and levitating on Sunday night, and another is going to be like, one of our comment sections is going to be like ablaze with chaos and savagery. So
good, always fun.
Quickly, while we were having this conversation, Adam Schefter tweeted out playoff clinching scenarios. I know you'll throw an article up, and so will we. But Dallas clinches a playoff berth. All these involve a Cowboys win, Vikings loss or tie, and a Green Bay loss or tie, a Seattle loss, or a Tampa loss or tie. It's really long, like, obviously, but it is possible. Philly, the most simplistic version, they win, and Seattle loses to San Francisco, which is possible. I would not possible, probable, the more likely result at this point. Or the Rams lose. So if Philly wins and gets a loss from either the Rams or Seahawks, they're in directly. They could still get in many different, actually 8 other ways, but they involve multiple outcomes, not one simple one like those.
Yeah, this makes my head hurt. I don't know.
And it already hurts. Okay. Quickly, let's preview or just offer
Packers win.
Yeah.
Jordan Love, man, gonna be in, like, I would not want to have to play the Packers.
I was going to ask you. So I think we're both equally terrified of the Niners. Is that fair to say? And for fair reason.
I'm terrified of them, but I have a lot. I have a lot of respect for the 49ers. Yeah,
sure. I mean, we would both we could both acknowledge that if our teams had to play them in the playoffs,
I think the Cowboys have had an especially more traumatizing history, specifically against that team.
Well, I don't know how you don't feel that Sunday was not traumatizing, but whatever.
I'm saying it's one game though. Like, there's multiple games.
My point is, it would make us very happy if San Francisco was eliminated before our team had to play them in the playoffs. So if we live in a world where Dallas or Philly is the 1 seed, probably Philly at this point in time, and San Francisco is the 2, what's the best outcome? Like, who would we most want to be that 7 seed? Like, who do we think could go steal it in San Francisco? Green Bay? Because they're the 7 seed right now.
No one, honestly, but yes.
No one. But if you have to pick one, I think it's Green Bay. I mean, because if the Niners are scared of anyone, it's the Packers, although they've owned them obviously very recently.
Yeah, I guess.
It'd be so funny if the Packers without Aaron Rodgers win and beat the Niners. Like, that would be so funny.
Would be funny. Jordan Love, yeah, he looked. I've been saying for a while, like, the Packers are going to make a run here just because their schedule is so easy. I didn't, see him beating the Chiefs, obviously. That was really impressive. And just watching Jordan Love on Thanksgiving, because I haven't seen him too much this year, he was making like very high level, like great throws. And that's why I liked I think I may have gone in the icebox for the Packers in terms of covering the spread. I didn't take them to win, but I did say they were going to cover the spread against the Chiefs. I mean, Steven may have too taken the points there because
we don't do icebox for spreads only. We do icebox.
Well, whatever. In any case, I've liked the Packers. I think they're legit. Yeah, so I like them here in the spot at a home.
You know that nobody, like everybody says they have a friendly schedule. This is your like I haven't fallen for Desmond Ridder the way that everybody else has take. So
I don't know about that. I mean, people were like, I think writing them off a few weeks ago. Justice seemed to be when he was on.
Of course, Justice did. That's his team. He lives in the chaos of it all.
This is in Green Bay.
Yeah. No, it's at MetLife.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
JetLife. With a G for the Giants when they play. Get Life. Yeah, I'll take the Packers.
Me too, and I'll lay the points. Not a contest.
And the Commanders are on their bye, like you said. Okay. And who they return to play?
They return to face Rams in LA.
Okay, cool.
And did you know this is up there with the Steagles thing that Sean McVay was once on the Washington staff with Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel? Did you know that?
When people say that, like, they don't like Sirianni, like I'm glad, as opposed to I don't want Sirianni to be, McVay. Like I don't want my head coach to be like this mean.
Well, I mean, if those are the two
who
options,
gets credit for naming the players on the other team's defense. So I have my issues with Sirianni for sure, but that is not one of them. The fact that I don't want other teams liking him, like people liked Sean McVay. Oh, he's so smart. Oh, he's so cool. No,
my biggest issue with Sirianni, honestly, because I have to write his name a lot.
The pen in his visor.
No, is I could never remember if there's one or two R's, and I always have to look. That's really
it's like the phone.
What phone?
The phone thing, Siri.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. That's helpful. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, I think, I listen to some other Eagles podcasts, and they'll say Sirianni, and then their Siri will go off because.
To be fair, she could go off just because of the phonetic pronunciation of it. Like she doesn't know the way it's being spelled.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe she does. Machines are smart. They're coming for us all. Okay, there will be a live episode of the NFC East Mixtape this week. No guests because we just gotta get straight to the meat. We're not having any side dishes, no potatoes, no mac and cheese, no rice, no beans, no greens, no bread, just steak on the plate.
Bring questions, I would say. Let's get some questions going. I know people usually do, but let's lean into that. Let's get some questions going in the chat for Thursday night. By the way, RJ, a lot of good positive feedback on the NFC East Mixtape at Wrong Crowd Beer Company in Westchester, PA, where we watched the Cowboys win, sadly, on Thursday night. But we had a really good turnout. Okay. A lot of interesting opinions on RJ at that thing. Like a good mix of, I think, love and hate. Some people thinking you debate me a little bit too much. Different. A lot of compliments as well. So a good mix.
The comments we generally get the most are that this show is best when we're fighting. You know what I mean? Like that's what people want. So I think,
well, it's like the first take of it all. People want to see conflict.
I know, but I think they'll enjoy like your petulance earlier against stats. You know what I mean? Like, but so
petulance.
people want to see, the chaos. I've said that word like 6 times in the last 10 minutes. People want to see it. So that's who I try to be. Anyway,
review for you, by the way.
Okay.
Ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, obviously. Do we bring back Ertz? This is from Flyers Guy 555.
This is
for Brandon
me?
And RJ. Long time listener and Eagles fan listening from Scotland. Shout out to Flyers Guy in Scotland. Quick question, though it may be old news by the time we record, with the news that Zach Ertz has been released and apparently wants to sign with a contender, what are the odds that Eagles can try and sign him? Could potentially be a better option at backup tight end than Jack Stoll. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind re-signing Zach Ertz. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm sure you don't really care from a Cowboys perspective if the Eagles do that. But I did want to get your quick take on the Eagles signing Shaq Leonard, because last week you said it was like a 7 out of 10 in terms of being disappointing if the Cowboys don't get him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, there's a lot of Cowboys fans who don't do this, people, he sucks anyway. That's not, we don't have to do this. But I think he would have been a really valuable depth piece. And that is
even just to keep him away from the Eagles, honestly.
Well, yeah, but to have depth anywhere is a welcome thing all the time, but certainly as you prepare for the playoffs. But there's no question that he can see more significant play time in Philadelphia. Like, you know what I mean? It's a really easy to understand decision from Shaq Leonard. Like,
also, just the connections to the he was with Sirianni in Indy, so he
well, I
knows the
mean,
coaches there.
he was with Stephon Gilmore and Malik Hooker in Indianapolis.
Yeah, but
so
the coaches, it's a little different, I think.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm also happy for him that he had a chance to enjoy pseudo free agency. Like, that's always cool. Like, when you're a player that didn't get a chance to experience it. So I will say, sorry, I almost made it. If the Zach Ertz thing happens, I won't laugh at it the way you laughed at the Cowboys bringing back Jason Witten, because it won't be the same thing. But it will feel a little it will feel a little stretching. It will feel a little like trying. And I'm a big fan of Zach Ertz, the person. Again, it really sucks how like cool a lot of these Eagles players are. But I like that. Like, the Shaq Leonard thing is like a 7 out of 10 for me. The Zach Ertz thing will be like a 4 out of 10 at the most.
I don't expect anyone to care. I just think it makes sense from the Eagles because, I mean, Goddard's been hurt. He does get banged up, so I would like to have more depth because their depth at tight end is not great. So I would like it from that perspective. And, if Zach Ertz is going to talk about how much he loves Philly all the time, then, I mean, this is kind of your chance to prove it here.
The only thing that would annoy me, and this happens in other situations too, I mentioned how, like, if I had been the Texans, I would have told the Packers, you want Randall Cobb, first round pick. You know what I mean? Like, so I would be slightly annoyed at, like, oh, the former defensive coordinator of the Eagles just like waived the tight end and nobody picked him up and claimed him and he could just go rejoin the team. Like, that seems silly to me.
Who coached Zach Leonard? Who was that head coach of the Colts?
Oh, Frank. Yeah,
so that's it's two.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
They're gaming the trade deadline.
I got lost in the Frank. And wasn't Zach Ertz even traded from Philadelphia?
He was traded
Arizona.
to the.
So like the Eagles got the draft pick, whatever, like however inconsequential it may have been,
it's a 5th round pick.
And then they get to just bring him back for, like, it's so stupid. I mean, that would bother me. Just
Howie Roseman, chess, not checkers, baby. Last thing, isn't it kind of funny that because this. I can't, like, I'm trying to think of another situation. This probably has this happened before where a player has like decided who they want to play with out of 2 teams playing each other the same week? Like, that's a pretty rare thing, right? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I certainly can't think of
like, that's really weird. I know it might not matter a ton, but it's just like that's very funny to see a player like, well, Shaq Leonard clearly thinks the Eagles have a better chance this week, I guess. I mean, obviously it's probably more about the playing time, but still it is a little bit about like which team do you believe in? To
add to your point, also, like, 2 incredibly, this is a consequential game. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't like, oh, he chatted with the Cardinals and the, and the Falcons, and they happen to be playing each other this week, and he just picked one. Like, no, this is like a seismic game that he just picked one side over. So it is a funny, kind of cool thing.
It's weird. It's strange. It doesn't happen.
I actually tweeted that on Monday. I do think, like, I feel like no ill will about this. Like, it's just, he made a choice. But it is cool how close the Cowboys and Eagles have been. You know what I mean? Like, these last few years, like, it has made it a lot of fun. It's made these weeks really tense and really, fun as well. But so, it's a good thing we started the mixtape when we did.
For our sake, yeah, for sure. It would be very boring.
Since we started the mixtape, these 2 teams are tied for the 2nd most wins in the NFL, only behind the Kansas City Chiefs.
Boom.
Wow. Let's add songs ourselves. Stats hasn't texted me yet, so wow. But Rachel's song, she also went Christmas, which is going to be a popular theme here in terms of my pick. She is going with What Christmas Means to Me by Stevie Wonder. So that is Rachel's pick. My pick, I've mentioned this before, I think. I heard the song last Christmas when I was in college, and I was playing, and I like a day later, I was playing racquetball with my friend, and we were talking about like songs, and I was like, dude, I heard the Glee cover. And it was like a really boppy song. So it's like, hey, dude, I heard this song that's really great. And he was like, oh, what is it? I was like, it's called Last Christmas. And I was like, Glee wrote it. And I like didn't know that to be true. I just like was kind of like talking confidently for no reason. And he was like, they didn't write it. I was like, yeah, they did. And we got into like an argument. He was like, no, Wham wrote it. So I'm going with Last Christmas, not Wham or Glee, the Carly Rae Jepsen version.
I don't think I'm familiar with any of these. I have to listen to them. That's good. Gives me some listening homework. I was thinking about going Christmas because it's December now, but I'm actually not feeling good, obviously, for multiple reasons. So I feel like it'd be it's not right. I'm not like in the Christmas spirit mindset right now. So I can't do it yet. I'm gonna have some more in coming weeks. I'm actually gonna go with Elevator by Boxcar Racer, which is a great side project band. And there's a lyric at the end of that song that goes, "Let's forget this all, move on." And I think that is thematic for what the Eagles need to do. I'm not a big believer in like the let's burn the tape, because no, you want to learn from your mistakes. But I think that this is a game they have to flush. They have to flush the 49ers game. Whatever, you got blown out, you got embarrassed, whatever. Doesn't matter in terms of you need to beat the Cowboys. So got to readjust the focus and do it quickly.
Live show coming later on this week. We will launch the show on the YouTube side of things early in the day. So if you want to go fill it up with questions ahead of time,
Yes,
we'll share the link out on social probably around noon or something that day. And then we'll get to those obviously once we start. We start right when Thursday Night Football does at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. So
counter programming.
Yeah.
So you don't have to watch what, Titans Steelers?
No, that was last time. It's Steelers Patriots.
Yeah.
Did you not see I know you want to leave, but just quickly, everybody made fun of last week on Thursday Night Football when they do the graphic that's like, oh, next week we have the Ravens Bengals, and it has like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. It had TJ Watt over the Steelers, and it had Bill Belichick for the Patriots, and it was like, how often does the head coach, like, they have no marketable players? That's what I'm saying. Like, it was really funny.
Like, if you had to put a player on there, who would you put
right now? Devontae Parker.
Zappi?
Devontae Parker, Zeke.
Yeah.
Wow. As we leave, Brandon, tell us your favorite color of Gatorade and why.
It's actually the strawberry flavor, so like a pinkish color. It's great. Love it.